The conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran has entered a dangerous new phase with mounting casualties, widening regional attacks, and growing concern over global economic consequences. What began as a large-scale military campaign targeting Iranian nuclear and military infrastructure has now expanded into a multi-country confrontation stretching across the Middle East. According to U.S. officials, the human cost for American forces is already significant. The latest figures from U.S. Central Command indicate that approximately 200 American service members have been wounded since the military operation began in late February. While many of those injuries have been categorized as minor, the overall toll underscores the intensity of the conflict and the scale of the military response now unfolding across the region. The U.S.-led campaign, known as Operation Epic Fury, was launched in coordination with Israel with the stated objective of dismantling Iran's nuclear infrastructure and weakening its military capabilities. The operation quickly triggered retaliation from Tehran, leading to missile and drone attacks on American and allied positions across several Middle Eastern countries. Since the start of the operation, American troops stationed across the region have faced repeated attacks from Iranian missiles and drones targeting military bases and logistical facilities. These strikes have been reported in multiple countries, including Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Bahrain, Iraq, and Israel. A spokesperson for U.S. Central Command provided the most recent casualty update. Tim Hawkins said since the start of Operation Epic Fury, approximately 200 U.S. service members have been wounded. Hawkins added that most of those injuries were relatively minor and that the majority of affected personnel have already returned to duty. Nonetheless, the injuries reveal the extent of the battlefield risks facing American forces across the region. Medical assessments indicate that many of the wounded suffered burns, shrapnel injuries, and traumatic brain injuries caused by missile explosions and drone strikes. Tim Hawkins said the vast majority of these injuries have been minor. According to U.S. military officials, more than 180 injured troops have already resumed their duties after receiving treatment. However, a smaller group of service members has suffered serious wounds that required extended medical care. At least 10 personnel have been classified as severely injured, highlighting the continuing dangers facing U.S. forces deployed throughout the region. Even more troubling is the growing number of fatalities among American forces. As of mid-March 2026, the U.S. military has confirmed that 13 service members have been killed since the start of the conflict. Several different incidents contributed to the rising death toll. One of the deadliest events occurred when a U.S. military refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq. The aircraft, a tanker used to support combat aircraft conducting strikes against Iranian targets, went down during operational activities. All 6 crew members aboard the aircraft were killed in the crash. Another deadly incident occurred at a civilian port in Kuwait, where Iranian drones struck a U.S. tactical operations center located near Camp Arafat. The attack killed 6 American service members and injured several others. The drone strike demonstrated Iran's ability to target U.S. military infrastructure across the Gulf region, even in areas considered relatively secure. A 7th fatality occurred later after a service member who had been wounded during an earlier attack at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia succumbed to his injuries. These incidents illustrate the widening geographic reach of the conflict and the increasing vulnerability of military facilities across the Middle East. Beyond American losses, the regional toll has also been severe. Reports indicate that more than 1,300 Iranians have been killed during the conflict, including both military personnel and civilians. Civilian casualties have also been reported in Lebanon and Israel as missile and drone strikes continue to hit residential areas and strategic infrastructure. Iran launched several waves of missile and drone attacks after the initial U.S.-Israeli strikes targeted Iranian military installations and nuclear facilities. The retaliation has involved attacks on air bases, logistics hubs, and diplomatic locations across the region. The expanding conflict has forced regional governments to increase military readiness and strengthen air defense systems. Several Gulf states that historically maintain cautious neutrality and tensions between Washington and Tehran have now found themselves directly affected by the war as Iranian strikes reached infrastructure within their borders. One of the most alarming developments in the conflict has been the threat to the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical maritime choke points for oil shipments. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through the narrow waterway, making it a vital artery for global energy markets. Any disruption to the strait could have significant economic consequences worldwide. Iranian officials have signaled that while the route remains open to most international shipping, access may be restricted for countries involved in attacks against Iran. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araqi, has stated that the strait remains open, but warned that vessels associated with Iran's adversaries could face restrictions. Iran has also suggested that some countries have approached Tehran seeking guarantees for safe passage of their ships through the strategic waterway. The growing uncertainty surrounding the strait has raised alarm among energy analysts and governments concerned about potential disruptions to global oil supplies. Meanwhile, political scrutiny has intensified around the leadership decisions guiding the conflict. U.S. President Donald Trump, who authorized the military campaign, has faced questions regarding intelligence assessments and expectations surrounding Iran's retaliation. During a recent exchange with reporters, Trump addressed whether he had been warned that Iran might strike neighboring Gulf states. Donald Trump said, "Nobody, no, 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 no. The greatest experts nobody thought they were going to hit." The president suggested that intelligence analysts did not anticipate Iran launching attacks against several Gulf countries that historically maintain neutral or cooperative relations with Tehran. Trump also defended his decision to withdraw the United States from the Iran nuclear agreement negotiated during the Obama administration. Donald Trump said, "If I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, you would. Right now, Israel would be gone." Trump argued that earlier administrations had failed to confront Iran's military and nuclear ambitions. Donald Trump said, "Somebody should have done it." He also revealed that he had recently spoken with another former U.S. president regarding the strikes on Iran, though he declined to disclose that individual's identity. Donald Trump said, "I spoke to one of the former presidents who I actually like. I'm pressed to identify." Refused. I don't want to say. The comments have fueled debate in Washington over communication and decision-making during the rapidly evolving conflict. Meanwhile, Iranian officials have signaled that Tehran does not intend to end the war under pressure. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi told reporters that Iran has not requested a ceasefire and remains determined to continue resisting what it describes as aggression by the United States and Israel. Iran's leadership argues that its missile and drone strikes represent legitimate retaliation against attacks on its territory and infrastructure. Araqi emphasized that Iran seeks a permanent end to the conflict, but insisted that any resolution must ensure that similar attacks cannot happen again. Iranian officials also pointed to the heavy losses suffered by the country during the war, including the deaths of senior officials and civilians. Despite those losses, the Iranian government has portrayed the conflict as a moment of national unity and resistance. Iranian leaders have argued that the country's military response has demonstrated its ability to retaliate effectively against adversaries. At the same time, the conflict has intensified international concern about the possibility of a broader regional war. Diplomatic leaders in Europe and other parts of the world have urged restraint and called for renewed negotiations aimed at preventing further escalation. Military analysts warn that continued attacks on regional bases, shipping routes, and energy infrastructure could significantly widen the scope of the conflict. For now, the war continues with no clear path to resolution. The military campaign has already involved thousands of strikes on Iranian targets, including missile launch sites, drone facilities, and military command centers. Iran's retaliatory operations continue as well, demonstrating that the confrontation is far from contained. With casualties rising and tensions escalating across the Middle East, the conflict threatens to reshape regional security and global energy markets. The coming weeks may determine whether the war stabilizes or expands into an even broader confrontation with far-reaching geopolitical consequences.